I never told my son, Andrew, the truth about my life. Not because I wanted to hide something from him, but because some truths lose their value the moment they're spoken out loud. He grew up believing his mother was just a quiet librarian who shelved books, drank weak coffee, lived in a small apartment, and preferred silence over company. He didn't know about the years before that life. The years filled with airports and crises, refugee camps and boardrooms, billion-dollar donors and barefoot children running toward me with letters in their hands. He didn't know about the nights I spent awake waiting for calls from places torn apart by floods or conflict, or the days I stood in front of world leaders with shaking hands, advocating for children whose names no one would remember but mine. To him I was Mom, and that was enough for me. But to the world I left behind, I had been something else entirely. Something powerful, something loud, something unstoppable. And choosing silence after all that noise, that was a conscious decision, not a loss. And yet, despite the life I built, the sacrifices I made, the people I helped, I found myself standing in my kitchen on a Thursday evening, staring at my phone while my son nervously said, "Mom, Olivia's parents want to meet you. Please behave, they're very refined." Refined. The word hit me harder than he intended. It wasn't the first time someone underestimated me, but it was the first time my own son worried I would embarrass him simply by existing. I swallowed the ache in my chest and asked, "What did you tell them about me?" There was a long pause, the kind of silence where the truth tries to escape but shame pulls it back. "I told them you're a librarian, that you have a simple life, that you don't really travel or spend much." I smiled even though he couldn't see it. Poor boy. He thought simplicity was weakness. He didn't know I chose it. "All right," I said quietly. "I'll be there." Saturday came quickly. I stood in front of my mirror wearing an oversized beige sweater, washed-out jeans, and my most worn pair of sneakers, the kind with fading soles but indestructible comfort. I tied my hair back into a loose bun, let a few gray streaks fall around my face, and picked up my cloth tote bag. The world saw what I allowed it to see, and tonight I allowed it to see nothing. I took a taxi to the restaurant, a place I knew well, though not for reasons anyone expected. I had once helped the owner secure a grant for his sister's education in Italy, long before the restaurant became a hotspot for the city's elite. But he had no idea I would ever walk in through the front door, dressed like someone who lived carefully week to week. And that was the beauty of humility, it made you invisible until you chose not to be. Inside, the restaurant glowed with golden lights and polished marble floors. The walls were decorated with art that pretended to be modern, but was really just overpriced minimalism. Andrew stood near the entrance, adjusting his shirt nervously, while Olivia held his arm with the kind of grip that said she was trying to calm him for her own sake. Their eyes brightened when they saw me, but the brightness faded quickly. Andrew because of worry, Olivia because she didn't know where to place her smile. And then I saw Olivia's parents. Emma sat straight-backed like a queen whose crown would slip if she relaxed even an inch. She wore diamonds on every finger except the thumb, and her hair was sleek in a way that cost money, not genetics. Harold sat beside her with the posture of a man who believed his wallet was more important than his personality. He stood when I approached, not out of respect, but to demonstrate his height, as if that made him superior. "You must be Andrew's mother," Emma said. "Not Mrs. Carter, not ma'am, not even hello. Just a label, a function." I nodded politely. Dinner began with the kind of conversation that scratches instead of cuts. Emma complimented Olivia's accomplishments, then asked me, "And you? Do you enjoy your little job at the library?" "Little job?" I smiled. "Very much." Harold chuckled softly. "My wife means no offense. It's admirable that you live simply." Andrew stiffened. Olivia stared at her plate. I nodded again. Let them talk. Let them reveal themselves. People who think they are above others always do. The waiter brought menus and Emma leaned across the table with a smile so sweet it soured the air. "If any of these dishes are too expensive, dear, I can recommend the cheaper ones. No need to feel pressured." I opened the menu as if I had never seen French cuisine before, even though I had once eaten with the very chef who designed half the dishes here. Their comments grew bolder as the evening stretched. They spoke about their trips to Mykonos, their beach house in Portugal, the $6,000 bottle of wine they once bought, just to see what it tasted like, and how Andrew and Olivia deserved to maintain a standard. They mentioned how hard they worked to build their legacy, How carefully they raised Olivia to choose a partner who comes from a stable background. How important it was that family burdens don't follow young couples into their future. Family burdens. They meant me. Andrew kept opening his mouth to defend me but closed it every time Emma raised her eyebrow. The poor boy was terrified of disappointing them. Terrified of disappointing me. Terrified of conflict altogether. I watched him, understanding him more in those moments than in the 32 years before. When the main course arrived, delicate portions arranged like edible artwork, Emma said. "This dish is $120, but don't worry, dear, we are happy to cover you." I looked at her and smiled. Thank you. She wasn't being generous. She was being theatrical. Everything she did tonight was a performance. And people like her hated an audience that didn't clap. But dessert. Dessert was the moment everything changed. The gold-decorated chocolate sculpture arrived at the center of the table, and Emma lifted her fork dramatically as if stabbing a moment she had been waiting for. This dessert is from a chef who worked in Paris. Very refined. Probably the most sophisticated thing you've ever tried. Andrew closed his eyes in embarrassment. Olivia swallowed hard. Harold smirked. And I felt something in me grow. Not anger, not pride, but a quiet certainty that the time for silence had served its purpose. I placed my fork down gently. Actually, I said softly, I've tried something almost identical. Emma's smile tightened. At a bakery downtown? No, I replied. At a gala in Paris. The chef catered the event I hosted. Silence spread across the table like spilled wine. Andrew looked at me as if seeing a stranger. Olivia froze. Harold blinked twice. Emma's lips parted soundlessly. Before they could respond, I reached into my cloth tote bag and pulled out a small, worn notebook. Its corners were bent, the cover frayed. But inside it held more power than any luxury they had flaunted. I placed it on the table and opened it. Page after page of handwritten letters, some in shaky English, some in beautiful cursive, some with drawings made by little hands. Letters from children in rural India, from young women in Kenya, from teachers in Colombia, from refugees in camps whose names might never leave the ledger of forgotten lives. Letters thanking me for building their school, for providing scholarships, for sending books and computers, for flying across the world to sit on dusty floors and read with them. For 10 years, I said softly, I was the director of the Global Empower Initiative. We operated in 6 countries, built over 400 learning centers, and raised $50 million in donations. I once coordinated relief during 2 natural disasters and helped send more than 5,000 girls to college. The table fell silent. Emma's fork trembled in her hand. Harold's confident posture wilted. Andrew stared at me with wide, unblinking eyes. Olivia's lips parted, stunned, like she had been slapped by truth. Before anyone could speak, the waiter approached timidly. "Ma'am," he said, "the chef recognized you. He asked me to give you this." He placed a small dessert plate in front of me. A replica of the one I had eaten years ago in Paris, decorated with a single handwritten message in chocolate. "Thank you for what you did for my sister." Emma's eyes widened. "You know the chef?" "I helped fund his sister's culinary training," I replied with a small smile. "She couldn't afford it," Andrew whispered. "Mom, why didn't you ever tell me all of this?" I looked at him gently. "Because I didn't want you to grow up believing that success is something you inherit. I wanted you to build your own life, not mine." Andrew's eyes filled with something I couldn't immediately identify. Shock, admiration, confusion, and grief all tangled together. He reached for the notebook with trembling fingers, flipping through the handwritten letters as though he were discovering who his mother truly was for the first time. "Mom, all these children, all these places, you did all of this?" he whispered, breathless. I nodded softly. "I did what I could." He swallowed hard. "Why did you never tell me?" I placed my hand on his gently. "Because I wanted you to grow without the shadow of my accomplishments. Children who grow up in the shade never learn to stand in the sun. I wanted you to become the man you were meant to be, not the man you thought you should be because of me." But Harold wasn't satisfied. People like him rarely accept truths that threaten the illusion they built around themselves. "This is very elaborate," he said, forcing a weak chuckle. "Anyone can claim such things." His voice wavered, betraying his insecurity. I turned to him calmly. Then don't take my word for it. Ask your waiter. Ask the chef. Ask the foundation I worked for. Or, I gently opened another fold in the notebook. Ask these people. I flipped to a page containing a photograph. Me standing barefoot on a dirt path, surrounded by children who were smiling so hard their eyes squeezed shut. Harold blinked. Something in his posture broke, though he tried to hide it behind tightened shoulders. Emma, still gripping her sparkling fork as if it were her shield, finally spoke. Why would someone like you, a director, live like this? She gestured toward my worn clothes, my modest bag, my simple life. Why hide everything? Her voice cracked with something that sounded suspiciously like uncertainty. I answered gently. Because after everything I witnessed in the world, the suffering, the hunger, the desperation, luxury felt loud. Silence felt peaceful. Money felt heavy. And freedom felt light. I paused before adding, I chose a simple life because I didn't need more to feel complete. Emma stared at me, her painted lips trembling. She had spent her life equating money with worth, status with identity, appearance with reality. And now she was sitting across from a woman who had nothing to prove yet had more depth than she had ever imagined. A long, thick silence settled over the table like fog. And then Harold cleared his throat again, still trying to salvage his dignity. Well, he said stiffly, it doesn't change the fact that Andrew and Olivia deserve stability. This time I didn't let it slide. I leaned forward, my voice steady but sharp enough to cut glass. Stability does not come from money, I said. It comes from character, from kindness, from respect. And tonight, I've seen more instability from the two of you than I've ever seen from a family lacking wealth. Emma's cheeks flushed a deep red. Harold looked away. Olivia, who had been silent since dessert, wiped her eyes discreetly. Just as I was about to stand, Emma suddenly said, You lied to us. Her tone wasn't angry, it was wounded. You came here pretending to be poor. You let us embarrass ourselves. Her voice shook. I took a deep breath. I didn't lie. I simply didn't perform. I let you treat me exactly how you treat people you believe are beneath you. And what I saw tonight, I glanced between them, told me more about you than any conversation could. Emma's shoulders stiffened, her lips pressing into a thin line. But she didn't argue. She couldn't. I stood up, slid my chair back gently, and picked up my tote bag. Thank you for dinner, I said quietly. But I think this family meeting has revealed what needed to be seen. Andrew stood too, desperate. Mom, please don't leave yet. I touched his cheek gently. It's all right. I'm not leaving you. I'm leaving the situation. As I stepped away, the waiter rushed over. Ma'am, he said breathlessly, the chef wanted to thank you personally. He said if it weren't for you, his sister would never have become who she is today. He paused, then added quietly, he comped your part of the bill. Emma's eyes widened. She was used to her money-buying privilege. She wasn't used to goodwill buying respect. I nodded, thanked them, and walked toward the door. As I reached the exit, I heard Harold's voice behind me, quiet, almost defeated. We didn't know, he said. Had we known, I turned back. And that, I said gently, is exactly the problem. You only know how to respect people if you know they are powerful. People who truly understand dignity treat everyone the same, especially those they believe have nothing. I walked outside into the cool night air, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight of my old life lift completely. I walked into the night feeling lighter than I had in years, but I knew the storm I left behind at that table had only just begun. The door of the restaurant had barely closed behind me when I heard Andrew's voice rise, not in anger but in pain. Why? He demanded. Why would you treat her that way? Why would you talk down to her? I didn't need to hear the rest to know how it unfolded. A mother doesn't stop hearing her child just because a wall stands between them. I stood outside for a moment, letting the cool breeze quiet the emotions swirling in my chest. After years of silence, I had spoken my truth, not to hurt anyone, but to reveal the truth of who they were. And sometimes truth is a mirror that people don't want to look into. Later that night, long after I had reached my apartment and changed into my soft cotton pajamas, my phone buzzed. It was Andrew. His message was simple but heavy. Mom, are you awake? I need to talk. I replied, I'm here. 10 minutes later, he stood at my door. He looked tired, emotionally drained, like a man who had been forced to confront truths he never expected. His hair was a mess, and his eyes were red as if he had cried or come close to it. "Mom," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." But I stopped him before he could say another word. "Don't apologize for them," I said. "You didn't mistreat me." He walked in slowly and sat at the edge of my couch like a little boy who had scraped his knees. "I should have asked," he murmured. "I should have cared. I didn't know. I never imagined." I sat beside him, placing my hand gently over his. "You weren't supposed to imagine," I said. "I lived that life so others wouldn't have to. I didn't raise you to admire me. I raised you to observe the world, to be kind, to think for yourself." He shook his head. "But I let them talk to you like that." "You were afraid," I said gently. "Afraid of disappointing them. Afraid of choosing sides. Afraid of conflict." He lowered his gaze. I tilted his chin up with my fingers. "And now," I said, "you know something important. Your kindness is your strength. But sometimes it can silence your courage. Tonight you found your courage." He looked into my eyes and I saw him, my little boy, my grown son, and the man he was becoming all at once. "What did they say after you left?" I asked softly. He took a deep breath. "Mom, they tried to justify everything. They said you trapped them, manipulated them, that you wanted to embarrass them." He swallowed hard. "But I told them the truth. I said they embarrass themselves because they exposed how they treat people when they think no one is watching." My heart clenched, not from sadness, but from a pride I hadn't felt in a long time. "And Olivia?" I asked. He hesitated. "She cried. She said she was ashamed. She said she'd never seen them behave that way so openly." Then he paused, voice trembling. "She said she admired you. That you are the kind of woman she hopes to become." That surprised me, but in the best possible way. "She has a good heart," I said. "Her parents didn't break it, they just wrapped it in fear. When she unwraps herself from that fear, she will be extraordinary." Andrew looked at me with wet eyes. "Mom, I don't want to lose you because of them." My chest tightened. "Oh, sweetheart," I whispered. "You could never lose me. I didn't survive half the things I've lived through just to lose my son to someone else's insecurity." He smiled faintly, resting his forehead on my shoulder. I let him sit there quietly, letting his worry melt into my embrace the way it did when he was a child afraid of thunderstorms. He slept on my couch that night. 3 days passed before someone knocked gently on my door. I opened it expecting Andrew, but it was Olivia. She stood there with her hair pulled back simply, wearing jeans and a soft sweater, with no jewelry except a thin bracelet. Her eyes were swollen but steady. "Mother-in-law," she whispered. "May I come in?" I stepped aside. "Of course." She walked inside like someone stepping into a sacred place, as if afraid to disturb anything. She looked around my tiny living room, the worn sofa, the uneven bookshelves, the small plants near the window, and her eyes softened. "This place feels peaceful," she said quietly. "I think I've never truly been in a peaceful place before." I poured her tea and waited. She set the cup down without drinking. Her hands trembled slightly. "I didn't come to apologize," she said. "Not yet. I came to explain." She took a deep breath. "My parents weren't always like this," she said. "They grew up in a village so poor that children shared one pair of shoes. They walked barefoot on burning roads. They slept hungry half their childhood. My mother's father died because they couldn't afford medicine. My father's mother died giving birth because the clinic had no supplies." She looked down. "So when they became successful, wealth became their shield, their armor, their identity. They believed money would save them from ever feeling powerless again." I nodded. "Fear can twist into arrogance when it goes untreated." She looked up, tears forming. "I grew up being told that everything in life is fragile, that people will judge me if I look weak. That survival means appearing stronger than everyone else. I learned to stay quiet, to obey, to never question them, to never challenge their fears." Her voice cracked. "But that night when you spoke, when you didn't react to their insults, when you revealed who you really were, I realized I'd been living in a cage that looked like a palace." I felt a deep ache for her. Not pity but recognition. She leaned forward. Mother-in-law. I want to break that cage. I want to change. I want to learn how to live with dignity, not performance. I want to become a woman who does not need diamonds to feel valuable. I want to raise my children one day to be kind, not fearful. She wiped her tears and whispered, "Will you teach me?" I reached for her hand. "You don't need me to teach you," I said softly. "The fact that you walked here today is the lesson. And the courage." She let out a shaky breath. Does your opinion of me change because of my parents?" "No," I replied. "Your parents made their choices. You are making yours." She closed her eyes, relief washing over her face. We spoke for 2 hours about fear, identity, expectations, trauma, and the heavy burden of growing up in someone else's shadow. She cried. I listened. She apologized. I forgave. Not because she earned forgiveness, but because she showed commitment to becoming better. Before she left, she hugged me tightly. "I promise," she whispered. "I will never allow anyone, including myself, to treat you the way they did." I nodded. "And I will never let the mistakes of your parents define you. You are not them." She left my home lighter than she came. And so did I. A week passed. I returned to my quiet routines, tea at sunrise, reading in the evenings, tending to my small plants. The world went on as usual, unaware of the earthquake that had shaken 3 families. Then Andrew texted me, "Mom, dinner at our place tomorrow. Just us. Please come." I went. And when I walked in, Olivia's eyes lit up with genuine warmth. She hugged me first. Andrew cooked dinner himself, with unevenly cut vegetables and pasta sauce that was too salty, but it tasted like love. During dessert, Olivia cleared her throat. "My parents want to meet you again," she said quietly. I raised an eyebrow. "Why?" She hesitated. "To apologize." I studied her face. She wasn't lying. "Will they come sincerely?" I asked. "Or to save face?" She shook her head. "Sincerely. They've been different these days. Quiet. Reflective. My mother hasn't worn diamonds in a week. My father canceled 2 business meetings. They've been talking, arguing, crying." I sighed softly. Guilt is loud before it becomes growth. She nodded. "They said they need time. But they want to earn your respect, not demand it." That was enough for me. Not to trust them yet, but to acknowledge their effort. 2 weeks later, Olivia's parents did meet me again. But this time no diamonds. No arrogance. No practiced smiles. Emma wore a simple dress, plain, modest, human. Harold's shoulders were not stiff with superiority, but heavy with humility. Emma spoke first, voice trembling. "We were wrong," she said. "Not because of who you are, but because of who we are not." She looked at me with teary eyes. "We confused wealth with worth, status with goodness, security with superiority." She swallowed hard. "And we treated you with cruelty you did not deserve." Harold added quietly, "We thought we were protecting our daughter, but we were protecting our insecurities." It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And honesty is the beginning of change. I accepted their apology, not because it erased what happened, but because forgiving them freed me. That in the end, I didn't gain respect because I revealed my past. I gained respect because I refused to let arrogance provoke me, because I stayed silent when I could have shouted, because I chose kindness when they offered cruelty. I learned something too, that sometimes you must let people underestimate you, not because you are weak, but because their reaction reveals the truth of who they are. Long before you reveal the truth of who you are, my son learned that love is not about protecting image. It is about protecting dignity. Olivia learned that breaking generational fear is an act of courage. Her parents learned that money cannot buy class, and humility is a luxury far more valuable than diamonds. And I returned to my quiet home, my books, my plants, my simple life, richer than ever. Not in wealth, but in peace. And peace is the greatest wealth anyone can ever own. And that was the night everything changed, for me, for my son, and for the family that once believed money defined a person's soul. But I want to hear from you now. What would you have done in my place? Would you have stayed silent? Or revealed the truth earlier? Tell me in the comments. I read every one of them. If this story touched your heart even a little, Please support the channel by liking this video and hitting the subscribe button. Your support helps me bring more life-changing stories just like this one. And before you go, tell me one thing. Do you believe kindness is stronger than wealth? Drop your answer in the comments. Let's talk about it together. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next life story with love and respect.